This is the Pick Six Podcast, and this is Sunday Night Super Friends. That's Will Brinson. That's John Breech. I'm Ryan Wilson. This is Sunday Night Super Friends Week 2 NFL Recap 2023 edition. All right, so here's the plan. We're going to hit on our top 10 takeaways from Week 2, the biggest storylines, the best players, the top plays, suspect coaching decisions. Looking at you, Brandon Staley. And, of course, the overreactions that some might argue fuel this podcast. Remember, give us a thumbs up if you're watching us on YouTube at NFL and CBS. Join us in the comments while you're at it. And of course, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss a show. All right, boys, let's get to it. First up,
I can't believe we sit there and watch you. I can't believe we sit there and watch you type out this whole intro. Very rude. Like the people have been waiting, Wilson.
The home of Honky Tonk, John Breech, and a Titans team that had lost 8 straight games dating back to Week 12 of the 2022 season. Breech. The cure, of course, the old Los Angeles Chargers. A team, Breech, that racked up 775 yards of offense through 2 games, but that defense, Brandon Staley's defense, allowed 877 yards, 63 points, and are currently 0-2. And I was going to lead in with the Chargers crap in the bed, but because of the way the Sunday Night Football game ended, we're going to Foxborough.
What a teaser.
I know, right? So stay tuned for Breech's hot take on Nashville and hot wings. But Brinson, I'll come to you.
It's like a hot chicken take.
I love
hot chicken take. What are we to make? And I said this on HQ. I actually feel pretty good where the Patriots are, but they're 0-2. Yeah, I feel a lot better where the Miami Dolphins are, and Tua might be the best player in the NFL through 2 weeks.
That's a hot take. I would say that if you look at all the 0-2 teams, I think that the Patriots are probably the best 0-2 team. Maybe you can make the case for the Chargers, but I mean, actually, the Chargers are probably technically the best 0-2 team. We'll get to them in a minute. But I do think the Patriots can get back involved in the playoff.
Let's start with the Dolphins, though. Let's go with the winners because we want to pay homage to the team.
You asked me about the Patriots.
Won. But then I finished with Tua, the best player in the NFL. I thought that would get you going.
Yeah, no. Tua's playing good football. He's getting the ball out quickly. He's, largely not making mistakes. I think the Patriots defense is really good, so I don't blame him for any of the mistakes that happened there. But like Belichick definitely adjusted. The defense stepped up. It feels like, like the Dolphins have a good running game and they have an electric playmakers. Belichick said, I'm going to squat on the deep shots, not let you beat me down the field, and Tua beat him anyway and moved to 5-0. The only quarterbacks.
Oh, Breech.
Tua Tagovailoa, John Elway, and Jake Plummer, 5-0, 4-0, and 3-0, including the playoffs. Undefeated quarterbacks against Bill Belichick in multiple games.
So, Breech, here's a fun fact, and I want to get your thoughts on maybe what we learned about the Dolphins, because I feel like Mike McDaniel's hitting his stride in year 2, whereas the guy we're going to talk about in a second, Brandon Staley, is moonwalking his way out of the NFL. But Bill Belichick is known for taking away your team's best player. Tyreek now in 6 straight games has had fewer than 100 receiving yards, and it did not matter on Sunday night. So what does that tell you about what Mike McDaniel's been able to do in a pretty short period of time?
It tells you that Mike McDaniel taught a master class in Foxborough, man. He outcoached the old sly Fox Bill Belichick. And he did this last week. Mike McDaniel is this next level coach that maybe we're not fully appreciating because we're all thinking about the Tua injuries and the Dolphins collapse last year, which I don't think you can completely put on McDaniel because of the Tua injury. But when he has all his weapons, this guy is an awesome coach. And I think if you watch
he's the favorite to win the MVP now. 5-1 at FanDuel. Ahead of Patrick Mahomes.
Wilson said he's been the best player in the NFL through 2 weeks, and FanDuel obviously agrees with him. But here's the thing. If you would have gone into this game and you told someone that you told a Patriots fan that Jalen Waddle was going to finish with under 90 yards, Tyreek Hill wasn't even going to have 45 yards, so your top 2 receivers are almost shut down, they would have been thrilled and probably assumed they were going to win. But what's Miami do? They're like, you know what? We'll just give the rock to Raheem Mostert and we'll see what happens. And it's just another weapon. There's just weapons everywhere. There's just the AFC's version of the 49ers. So
I was going to say, I think what's really interesting too is that you look at what the Patriots game plan was, and they come out on defense and they're playing 3 deep, right? And they're like, look, we're not letting you beat us over the top with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And I think when you see what the Dolphins did, okay, so one of 2 things happened. Either Mike McDaniel was aware that that's what Belichick was going to do because he studied the tape and he looked at the tendencies and he knows what Belichick wants to take away your best player, or he adjusted in game. And I think the answer is that he knew what Belichick was going to try to do. And so he'd come up with a game plan that we're going to try and run the ball. You're going to take what you can get from the Patriots in terms of defensive, what they're showing you. You're going to get the ball out quickly, and we're going to, dink and dunk down the field. And that's exactly what the Dolphins did. They took a couple shots, but mostly short throws, quick throws, let Raheem Mostert run, and Raheem Mostert ran really well. Salvador Ahmed ran well as well. Devin A-Chain, I always pronounce his name wrong. A-Chain was out there too. And as such, the Dolphins moved to 2-0 for the first time since 2001 and 2002. They're trying to get to 3-0 for the first time since 94 through 96, I guess. It's the most yards, 924 yards a season through 2 games in team history. Wilson, it should come as no surprise that just as the Dolphins are starting to become this juggernaut in the NFL, I mean, I'm just saying, you produce this podcast, your team wins, right?
Hey, that's a nice
what a
segue.
segue.
That's right. You have a surprise for the people.
There is no better time than a huge week 2 win in prime time than to introduce new Pick Six podcast producer, Harry Swartout.
Hey!
How y'all doing?
Everybody who's watching, meet Harry. Harry, meet everybody. There's some nice people out there. I'm sure there's some weirdos too. We love them all. Harry is a big Dolphins fan and is taking over producing the podcast. Debo is also listening. If you want to rag the Eagles in the chat, type Harry in the chat and let him say hello to him. Harry, tell the people about yourself and give us a quick breakdown of the Dolphins.
Well, easiest thing to tell you about me is I'm a huge Dolphins fan. I'm a huge Tua fan, so I'm going to try to set the balance of this podcast at a little different pitch. But I think the biggest thing that the Dolphins have going for them, which they didn't have last year, is an offensive line that doesn't collapse. You have, and Terron Armstead has not been playing. He's been out both games. You have Kendall Lamb at left tackle. He's been playing out of his mind. You have Isaiah Wynn left guard. He is a cast off from the Patriots. We stole him, and it was his revenge game.
Yes. Oh boy, here we go.
And you have Austin Jackson, who is a cast-aside first-round pick who we didn't think was going to go anywhere, and all of a sudden he's been playing great. Did he have his laps? Yeah, on the Tua interception in the end zone, he kind of just watched Matt Judon walk by him. But by and large, this group, coached by Butch Berry, a cast-off himself who was unceremoniously kicked off of Denver last year, who was terrible at offensive lining. So, I think that, keeping Tua upright, blowing open holes for their super fast running backs, and also Eric Ezukanma, who has been given the ball in a Deebo Samuel light role.
Was that Tua's first sack? Like the first time
that was the first sack of the year. We went sack with last week, and he's only been, I want to say he's been knocked down 3 times total. So the man has been touched 4 times.
And he's done. I was reading this, sort of looking at the stats, was like Mike McDaniel used his legs like almost designed run stuff, but I sort of wonder if it's like the old theory about with Cam Newton, where instead of trying to hold the ball behind the line and run around behind, like use your legs and just be proactive, because that way you can avoid the hits. You know what I mean? Versus catching the hits when you're Lucas has a Brinson Sucks hat on display. You think Brinson Sucks hat is cool? Harry, show us the custom Dolphins jersey that you have and that you own. Finkel is Einhorn in today's Ventura Dolphins jersey.
Laces out, and the one thing, if you're gonna slag the Dolphins for one thing this game, it was Jason Sanders getting a kick blocked, which may not have been his fault because Bill Belichick drew up a crazy Madden play where they just ran a guy in from offside.
Yeah.
But the other he misses 50-yard kicks. Just go for it. Just go for it. Other than that, clean Dolphins game. No notes.
I would like to point out that I jokingly asked Harry if he had a Ray Finkel jersey, thinking for sure that the answer would be no.
That's true.
He looks at me, his eyes light up, and he's like, let me go to my closet real quick, and comes back with a Ray Finkel jersey. So I was shocked. I will probably be breaking into his house at some point and stealing it.
You're there right now, let's be honest.
Now, look, Harry, you should
next
know.
door in an Airbnb.
You should know this is true. Now, look, you're the first podcast producer of the Pick Six podcast to not be an Eagles fan, which, I mean, thank God. But also, when Debo was producing, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And then when Billy was producing, the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. So just so you know, it's just good. It's a good omen. Like the
From
Dolphins,
your lips to God's ears, man.
I'm
here for the ride.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
do it.
All right, Harry, let's put you on the spot here. How many games are the Dolphins winning?
12.
Ooh.
Do the Dolphins, do they win the division?
Easily.
Oh.
I think they win the division by at least a full game, and I think they wrap it up 1 week early. I think that the last game is a rest.
So, Harry, here's where I give you some bad news. Now, I'm a huge Tua supporter. I said last week on this podcast that I thought he deserved Joe Burrow money. Joe Burrow deserves Tua Tagovailoa current money, for being honest about it. We'll get to that in a second. But we did a bowl prediction show a week. Let's not get into it. A week and a half ago, we did a bowl prediction show. And John Breech, I'll let you break the news to Harry. What was your bowl prediction about the Miami Dolphins?
Well, my bold prediction was that they would finish with a 9-8 record, and Harry said 12-5. So it's not a huge difference that they would finish in last place.
3 games is a pretty big difference.
I was sold after last week. My mind already changed. I'm on the Dolphins bandwagon. I'm Team Harry.
You're leaving out the punchline. What was your bowl prediction?
I already said it. They picked the Dolphins to finish in last place before the season started.
That's Dick Vitale. I play Dick Vitale when we dunk on people. Also, you should know, Harry, just like a couple of vocabulary terms here. Wins over Wilson is Ryan's made up way of it's basically saying like what wins over Wilson as the Dolphins winning how many games, Wilson?
Oh, they're going 16 and 1. I feel pretty good about the Dolphins. I'm a huge Tua supporter. Like I said, I think he deserves Joe Burrow money. And again, the odds agree with me. He's been the best player in the NFL through 2 weeks.
Wins over Wilson malfunctions after midnight.
If Tua plays all 17 games, or even plays like 15 games, I think that there's a really good chance that he will be in the top 3 MVP.
Oh yeah,
just because of the weapons he has, how well he's played in this McDaniel system. So yeah, I mean that's exciting. All right, Harry, you get out of here. We're pumping out Harry. He's gonna do a great job. We're producing all these shows. Wilson, you famously dragged Justin Herbert before the draft, unlike me.
That's true. So 1 down. The Dolphins are the winners. I'll say quickly, I think the Patriots actually look pretty good for an 0-2 team, but that's a conversation we'll have later throughout the season. But Mac Jones.
Really quickly. 0-2 team that you Bengals, Chargers, or Patriots? Which 0-2 team is more likely to make the playoffs?
I'm going to go with the Patriots. I think you're in bad shape. I mean, as Breech knows, last season the Bengals started 0-2, went to the conference championship game. No team in the history of the universe has ever gone 0-2 in back-to-back years and gone to the playoffs the second time. So that's stacked against them. All right, on to number 2. So Breech, I'll finally come to you with that. Can
I just comment on the Patriots really quickly?
We're supposed to move on, but go ahead.
I just while we're here, because I think it matters. I'm not trying to prop up the Patriots and be like, oh, the Patriots is a great Patriots team. I think they could easily be 2-0. They just had
100%.
It feels like those games were a lot closer. But then this is also the NFL when you are when you don't have Tom Brady and you were playing with these margins. And so you look at the Falcons, right? And we'll talk about them. They're 2-0, but they've won these it's not dominant fashion. You don't feel like, oh, this team is just destroying people. The Dolphins could easily be 0-2. The Patriots could be 2-0. Now, don't get me wrong, the Dolphins outplayed the Patriots, but I think this Patriots defense is playing really good football. I think they're going to be a problem week in and week out. And Mac Jones, to me, has looked way, way, way better the last 2 weeks than he did the entirety of 2022. And I think they've got something cooking, but you lose 2 in Foxborough. I think that's Rich Eisen maybe tweeted this out. The first time they've started 0-2 at home to start the season since 1975. Last time they were 0-2 to start the season was 2001 when they did go to the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. I just feel like they really need to get one of these. You feel like to be in a spot, Breech.
I'll just say real quick, you mentioned Tom Brady's name because it's funny. The one issue the Patriots have is that the offense hasn't been able to come up with that clutch final drive. They had the ball with the chance to tie or win, and each of their first 2 games didn't do it. Maybe you need to add some playmakers. It just seems like, Mac Jones is playing well. The defense is fine. Offense just needs to figure out who those clutch guys are. A bug just flew in my throat. Oh my god!
I swallowed a bug. I'll just say quickly.
You just swallowed a bug on air?
I'll just say quickly, Kayshon Boutte gets his foot down. That Eagles game's much closer. Drink some water, Breech. And Cole Strange tried his darndest to get that third down conversion or fourth down conversion. You okay?
Yeah. I like that we zoomed in on Breech. Wait, was it really a bug?
I don't know what it was.
All right, on to the Chargers. Breech, coming back to you if you're able to breathe. If not, just give us the hand sign and we'll go to Brinson. Brandon Staley, I've been propping this dude up for going on 3 years now. He's killing me. Justin Herbert's not the problem. Kellen Moore's not the problem. Brandon Staley, defensive mastermind, appears to be the problem. Breech, tell me what's going to happen. Look into your crystal ball and tell me what's going to happen to Brandon Staley.
But you didn't spit the bug out, though. What happened to the bug? Did you swallow the bug?
It went straight down my throat. I didn't have a choice. I choked on it.
So you swallowed the
a lot of protein, though. It's a lot of protein, so I'm in a good shape.
It's not a
wait, what was the question here, Wilson? What was the question?
You were choking harder than Andy Dalton in the playoffs, dude.
I was waiting for something.
I believe he asked you about Brandon Staley and the crappy Chargers defense.
So look into your crystal ball and tell me what Brandon Staley's future looks like pre-Halloween and, fittingly enough, after the clown show that is Halloween and the Chargers.
Well, I'm glad we went from the Dolphins to the Chargers because, I obviously had the Dolphins missing the playoffs, so everybody made fun of me, but I had the Chargers missing the playoffs because Brandon Staley seems like he's kind of the problem, and they haven't fixed that problem, and that's how you lose 2 straight games that you probably should have won. They probably should have beaten the Dolphins week 1. They probably should have beaten the Titans in week 2, and it's not even necessarily the defense that gives me the biggest issues here. It's that, Brandon Staley's having an identity crisis. This guy, his first year, was the most aggressive coach, going for it on 4th down all the time. There was a point in this game, I think it was early in the second quarter, the Chargers had a 4th and 1.
On the 44.
From the 44-yard line. And I'm like, surely Brandon Staley will go for this. And nope, the punt team comes out, and I'm just like, are you serious? You're putting Brandon Staley, the guy who used to go for it, who went for it on 4th and 3 from your own 20 with a playoff spot on the line against the Raiders a couple years ago. You're punting on 4th and 1. And at that point, it was just like, they're going to lose this game because this guy has just lost it. Like he's second guessing himself. It just seems like he's one of those things where you failed once and now you don't know what to do. And I don't think blowing that Chargers loss or the Jags loss help. It's just a disaster. Maybe a bug flew down his throat, like on the sidelines. It's possible. So the Chargers are the first team in the Super Bowl era to score 50+ points in their first 2 games, not have a single turnover in those 2 games, and go 0-2. They've actually seen, and Brandon Staley now, I don't know where we're getting these odds from, but he is the favorite. He was the favorite coming into this week to be the first coach fired. I think with Kellen Moore on that staff, that really becomes problematic, especially if the offense is playing well. Look, they got completely gashed by Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill last week in the passing game. Right, this is a team where Brandon Staley's defense for however long he's been there has been bad on stopping the run. And now they stink at stopping the pass. Ryan Tannehill had the worst week of any quarterback in the NFL last week. I mean, he completed 7 passes and threw 3 interceptions. And he comes out and he goes 20 of 24 for 246 and a touchdown. And it's not like the Titans were moving the ball all over the place. Do you know how many times they scored 27 points in overtime, kind of the field goal to win the game? Wilson, do you know how many times last year the Tennessee Titans scored more than 27 points?
I know they lost 8 in a row coming into this year, so it couldn't have been very many. I'll go with
0.
4.
They scored 27 points once and scored more than 21 points, I think, 3 times. This is a team that, and they didn't exactly load up on offense. This is a team that has scored 15 points against the Saints last week. It is not a good offense. And the Chargers come to town. And again, we saw it with Staley where they had, I think it was 3 minutes and 38 seconds left. They get the ball. They're down 3, and they just saunter and meander and wander their way down to score. And I understand you want to use up the clock. You don't want to give Tennessee a chance to tie it up, but your defense is supposed to be good. It's not. And then 2, it's just taking your time. And all of a sudden it's a 3rd and 3 from the 7, I think. and Herbert gets sacked, and then they have to kick the field goal. They go to overtime. They drop back, and they've been digging and dunking. They drop back 3 times in overtime, trying to take deep shots. All 3 are incomplete. And next thing you know, you're punting to Tennessee. They march. They run 3 plays. It's 3rd and 1. Derrick Henry's not on the field, and Brandon Staley calls a timeout because his defense is unorganized. The Titans use that moment to let Derrick Henry get rested, running back on the field. He converts a 3rd down. 4 plays later, they're kicking a field goal to win the game. This guy is this. He should be minus 250 to be the first coach fired. His seat should be scorching. And the cheap ass Chargers really screwed up because Sean Payton desperately, and I know Sean Payton's 0-2 too, but like if you put Herbert with him, he'd be much better.
Say, hold on here.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like Sean Payton desperately wanted this job. This offense, this team would be much better with Sean Payton than it is with Brandon Staley. And instead he's with the Broncos now. And they just didn't want to deal with, Tom Telesco didn't want to deal with the power struggles. They didn't want to deal with paying 2 coaches. And now it's going to bite him in the ass because they're going to have to fight. I mean, like if this thing doesn't get turned around quick, they're going to have to fire Brandon Staley.
So Breech, let me run this by you because as we were learning more about our dude, Harry, huge Dolphins supporter, he mentioned this in the rundown. Is Justin Herbert anti-clutch? And I was like, in the moment, I was like, I get it. Because the last 2 drives, the last 2 games, Justin Herbert hasn't been up to what Tua was up to, or in the case of the Ryan Tannehill and the Titans, what they were able to get down the stretch, and then Nick Folk's game-winning field goal in overtime. Is Justin Herbert, John Breech, anti-clutch?
Well, I kind of was going down this road last week after the Chargers-Dolphins game, when the Chargers offense had the chance to drive down, and all they needed in that game was a field goal, and they couldn't do that. They promptly went, I think, 5 plays, turned the ball over, game over. So it was like, the Dolphins defense is good. Maybe this was fluky. It's the first game. Who knows? Same situation this week in overtime. The Chargers get the ball first. All you have to do is drive down, get a touchdown, you win, at least get a field goal, do something. What do? You promptly go 3 and out. So I do think there's something to be said for these clutch situations. And I know, people rank quarterbacks as far as arm strength, accuracy, and Justin Herbert has all the tools you want in a quarterback. He is a very good quarterback. But if you asked me who I had to choose as my quarterback for a game-winning drive in the 4th quarter with my team down 6 points, I don't know that Justin Herbert is in the top 7.
I mean, he had 5 game-winning drives each of the last 2 years, and 9 total 4th quarter comebacks in the last 2 years as well.
0 for 2 this year.
Right. Let me ask you,
what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately?
No,
look, Emory Hunt calls him Beachbody Stafford. He calls him Beachbody Stafford because he's like a West. I mean, because Stafford the Lions. He thinks he's a stat patter too, like just somebody who just.
He's not a stat patter, but let me ask you this. I'll ask you, Brinson, because Breech is too close to Nashville. This will be too hot to handle for him. If we do the old Wilson wins over Wilson trade-a-roo, and you give Mike Vrabel coaching the Chargers, that team.
The Chargers are 2-0. Yeah, the Chargers are
so Super Bowl. The Chargers also beat the Titans 41-13. Yeah. If it's Vrabel on the Chargers,
and that's the
math Titans.
So this is a pretty crazy stat too. Most 300-yard passing games in your first 4 seasons, and obviously Herbert is only 2 games into his 4th season. Patrick Mahomes 26. In those 26 games, he went 21-5. Kurt Warner 26. In those games, he went 22-4. Dan Marino 22. He went 16-6. Justin Herbert 23. He was 12-11. Like that is, I'm not trying to say this is like a QB wins thing or whatever. It's just like this dude is putting up monster numbers and just the wins aren't coming. It does feel very like Stafford-esque in the sense of like the team doesn't win despite the quarterback playing well, except the Lions had a terrible roster. I mean, yeah, they had Calvin Johnson, and that was great for a while. And the defense was pretty good with Jim Schwartz's coaching, but like when they had Ndamukong Suh and Cliff Averill, but like this Chargers team is loaded. This roster is slammed with talent, like Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. You got 2 decent tight ends in Donald Parham and Gerald Everett. You got Rashawn Slater, an all-pro. Like you got rookie of the year votes on the left, like at left tackle. You got Joey Bosa. You got Derwin James. There's so much talent on this team, and they just can't win.
But that also goes to Wilson's point about is the culprit Staley, who apparently has no idea how to run his defense, or Herbert not being clutch. I would definitely lean more towards Staley. So I'm not like pinning this on Herbert by any means or saying he's not clutch. I'm just saying that he has had opportunities to win each of the Chargers games this year. He has not come through, but I think this is more on Staley than anyone else.
Yeah. Like
by the way, joke's on Staley, because here's the deal. You knew what charging was before you took the job. That team has been charging like no one's business.
And he even said they weren't going to charge her anymore. He wasn't going to think about it. So joke's
he said that out loud?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, dude, they're gonna use the phrase. It's like he tried to pull a Dabo. Like, we're not gonna say Clemsoning anymore. It's like, no, dude, you're a Charger. You're gonna charge.
I think the kids say they have the receipts. All right, I'm gonna take a quick break. When we come back,
I'm gonna fill up my cup while we take a break.
And poor old John Breech is gonna tell us on the other side, will the Bengals be okay?
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
All right, Johnny B. Bad. The Bengals have been bad these 2 weeks. Last week, we just talked about it. Last year, we just talked about it a moment ago. They started 0-2, went to the conference championship game. This looks like a different team, and I don't want to panic, and you're much closer to the situation than I am. I'm a Steelers homer. You're a Bengals fan. Shout out to our guy, Jim Breech. But here's the thing.
Friend of the podcast.
Joe Burrow has been terrible in the first 2 games. ACL injury, appendectomy, and then the calf injury the last 3 years. So he has been slow starting, and he has played in his career, Breech, based on my wins over Wilson math, 3 preseason snaps. Now, that plus the injuries probably has something to do with what we're seeing here, but the weather game in Cleveland was troubling, but okay, it's the weather. He has struggled against Lamar Jackson, I should say, has been really good against the Bengals. Where are you on this Bengals team? Are they going to be okay?
Do you want my optimistic point of view first, or my pessimistic
honest
point of view?
Honest.
Well, because they kind of mesh. Okay.
All
so
right.
optimistic Breech says a lot of the stuff you just pointed out. Look, Joe Burrow has a career record of 1-7 in the first 2 weeks of the season. Doesn't play in the preseason. They lose. That's it. I mean, end of story. They're 0-2 last year, as you mentioned. 1-7 is not great, as we all know, but they rebound every year, and they're always fine. We saw it last year, obviously, getting the playoffs. Wilson already mentioned the stat, though. No team has ever started 0-2 2 seasons in a row and made the playoffs in both seasons. So obviously that is a little concerning. So as far as that goes, it's like, Joe Burrow spends the first 2 weeks knocking the rust off. That's just what he does. He wasn't good at all until the fourth quarter of week 2 last season. So on that sense, it's like, I'm not concerned. That being said, I am actually way more concerned than I was last week when I was a -3. I wasn't even on the chart yet. Right now, I'm a 5, which is mid-level, but I went up 8 points. So that's a lot of going up in concern. Number one, it's not just that they're 0-2. It's that they lost to 2 division rivals. They lost 2 division games. So that's more concerning than it was last year when they only lost 1 division game. Number 2, it looks like Joe Burrow possibly re-aggravated his calf injury. Well, guess what? Maybe if you didn't play him in week 1 or week 2 and just let that thing heal all the way through, this would not be an issue because you're 0-2 anyway at this point. You would have been 0-2 if you let your backup quarterback play. And it just seemed like the Bengals were in such a rush to get him back. And I know how badly you want to play, especially after getting that contract. And it would have been crazy had he been benched or not started because they were going to let him heal. But now this is a thing that's going to linger. Calf injuries don't heal if you're playing on them. And if he's playing, then it's just going to be bothering him all season. And then you look at what else is happening with Joe Burrow. This is from our research team. It is a great stat. Joe Burrow is 0-12 this season on passes that travel 15 or more yards in the air. He is the only quarterback who has started 2 games who has 0 completions with 15 air yards. So he can't throw the ball downfield right now, which is also a concern. Maybe he's trying to get it out quicker because he doesn't want to take these hits because he knows the calf is bad. So it is definitely much more concerning than last year. But again, 1-7 through the first 2 weeks. He's never been good in the first 2 weeks. I will be triple more concerned if they get smoked in week 3. But right now, I'm a 5.
So
what do you think, Brinson?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm on a scale of 1 to 10 here, I think probably a 5. I didn't see the injury, so I don't know what the exact because the game is over. I shifted my attention to other stuff. I don't know exactly what the prognosis is there. I do think is his right calf or left calf?
think he's right.
I would say, I'm not a quarterback, I'm not a doctor, but man, if you're struggling to push the ball down the field, right calf injury definitely something that could play into that. Because you're stepping back, you're stepping back. You're trying to push off and drive down the field, and he has looked a little off. I did think so we, as you guys could probably guess, when we're in our Slack group chat, and someone's team is performing poorly, no one's like uplifting them, like we're like dunking on Breech left and right, like ripping the Bengals, like it's Joe Burrow wash, and I love Joe Burrow, but it's like we're ripping the Bengals. And then it's like, after, you were like, well, he started turning it on last year in week 2 around like the fourth quarter. And like right when he said that, I thought Burrow started playing a lot different. I thought the pace they used was better. And so I sort of wonder if this is a case of what we've seen the last couple of years where the Bengals come out, they run the ball a bunch, they try to be the sort of methodical, they try to like not put Burrow at risk. And eventually it's like kind of panic time and they sort of have to just let Burrow uncork. And that's when he starts to get going and he plays well. The re-injury thing is very concerning. I think this next 4 weeks between now and October 15th is massive, massive, massive for the Bengals in terms of the schedule. So they're at Monday night, September 25th. They are hosting the Rams, they're hosting the Rams. That's the Rams. We'll talk about the Rams in a minute. I think the Rams look a lot better. That's not a freebie. The week after that, they're coming to Nashville. I'm sure you'll be there in attendance, Breech, on Sunday to play the Titans. Both of those games, you feel like they'll be favored and should win, really kind of need to win. Then you're at the Cardinals, and then you get the Seahawks at home. Like, I think you have to go 3-1 in those 4 games, Breech, or else you're in your panic scales up to like 10.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they have to go 3-1.
They're in a bad way.
Let's go into the bye. Look, dude, coming out of the bye, you're at San Francisco and Buffalo at home. Like that's probably 1-1 best case scenario. So if you go 2-2, you're 2-4, and all of a sudden you're 3-5 going into week 10. Now you can beat the Texans at home and you get to 4-5, but like now the AFC's landscape is shifted too because we don't think the Jets are a playoff team with Aaron Rodgers out. That helps. The Chiefs are 1-1. The Jaguars are 1-1. Like there's nobody really separating in a crazy way. The Ravens 2-0. The Raiders are in first place in that division. The Dolphins now 2-0. But like the AFC is not as the teams who we thought would be really good didn't come out and like win both of their games, is what I'm saying. But I still think you can't go. You would like not to go 2-2 in those games.
Yeah, I mean. You want to win in week 3. You don't want to drop to 0-3. That's all right. I would be concerned about. Hey,
Breech, let me ask you this before we look too far down the road. Explain to me why Jamar Chase hasn't been featured more, and also that interception Joe Burrow threw at the goal line is the most un-Joe Burrow interception I've seen going back to his LSU days. So that doesn't seem to me to be a function of a calf. It seems to be a function of not seeing Geno Stone. Do you have any insight on what happened in those 2 situations?
No, that was an interception you don't usually see Joe Burrow throw, where he just either lost sight of the defender or got fooled. And either one of those is not ideal. Usually his interceptions because he's chucking it downfield, trying to make a play, and then the quarter makes a good play in a man-to-man situation. And that just wasn't what happened here. I mean, Burrow thought he had someone wide open, and the defender made a good play. And the thing is, as bad as the Bengals were today, you had Joe Burrow obviously throwing that interception down inside, down at the goal line, is that they still had a chance to win this game. I mean, it was still a close game. And I think if you're the Bengals, that's probably the one small silver lining. But there are not many silver linings here.
No, they're hard to find. And by the way, if you're watching us on YouTube, please take a look at my shiny dome because it is something to behold. I need some powder on that bad boy. 3 down.
Did somebody make fun of it?
And real quick, someone asked Joe Burrow's stats last year versus this year.
Yeah.
Last year, first 2 games, he threw for 537 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. This year, only 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. The only positive change is that he's only been sacked 3 times through 2 weeks. Last year, he got sacked 13 times through 2 weeks. So the offensive line's doing their end. That's the worst part, is that the offensive line's doing okay, and he still can't do anything.
Yeah, that's a sad story, and one that I don't feel bad about because my Steelers are terrible. All right, moving on to point 4. Brinson, coming to you. The Bills and the Chiefs will be just fine, question mark, after convincing win by the Bills over the Raiders in Orchard Park, and the Chiefs outlasted a very good Jaguars team down in Jacksonville. Are you feeling better about one team than the other, about the same with both? What do you got?
So I had the Bills as one of my best bets on our pick show on Thursday. Went 4-1 this week. Patriots are the one loser. Very close to a full sweep, so very excited about that.
So if you would not have picked against Harry's Dolphins, you would have gone 5-0. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I didn't actually think, lesson learned. I didn't really think through that whole process. One of my bets was the Bills, who were -9. And the point made about the Bills was if Buffalo had done what Buffalo should do against Zach Wilson and Josh Allen hadn't turned the ball over 4 times, then the Bills would have been like 12-point favorites against the Raiders. They still would have covered because they won 38-10, and they beat the living crap out of them. I thought this is a quintessential week 2, oh, right, let's settle down, everyone take a breath game. The Bills.
Let me ask you something. Did you watch this game relatively?
Yeah. I mean, do you want to ask me a question? You keep going.
I want to ask you, did it feel like to you, because this is what it felt like to me, that Josh Allen made a concerted effort to not be Josh Allen and up like he did in week 1?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, he wanted – I think it was a case of – so they're playing the Jets last week, and he couldn't get anything, and he couldn't be patient, and he couldn't take his time. And then against the Raiders, he's just like – I think he knew, like, I don't need to go get this. Like, I can sort of have whatever I want. I mean, James Cook ran 17 times for 123 yards. Damian Harris and Latavius Murray both scored a rushing touchdown. Allen, 31 of 37. Now has 3 games as a Bills quarterback, the 80% completion, 3 pass touchdowns, 0 interceptions, had 2. If the Raiders had been competitive on offense and had scored more than 10 points, Josh Allen would have thrown for like 600 yards. Like, he was getting whatever he wanted. The Raiders just didn't have the interest or any ability to get involved in this game. They marched down the field on their first drive, and then promptly, 5 plays, 75 yards, and a touchdown. It's like, oh, Las Vegas is going to come here and play around. And then the rest of the game, they had 34 plays, 3 points, and 3 turnovers. They nothing. The Bills defense shut them down, played great football. I think this is a perfect, okay, the Jets sort of have my number right now, but I don't have to worry about them too much. Let's get home. Let's get right. Very efficient, very versatile, very varied in their approach, both like on defense and offense. And, I think this is the Dolphins look great. But Buffalo, to me, I still think I would be wanting to bet them to win the division. And then
I get that.
KC and Jacksonville, and you can take. I mean, do you want to wait on KC, or do you want to just go and double down on it?
Let me ask Breech, and then you can circle back, and because you're a huge Jacksonville supporter. So Breech, I'll ask you 2 questions. Do you think that Chris Jones and Travis Kelce are important to what the Chiefs do to need to win? Number 1, and number 2, do you feel better after week 2 about the Chiefs or the Bills?
I think I feel better about. I was never worried about the Chiefs. It felt like once Travis Kelce gets back out there, they're going to be fine. I never thought at any point during this game that Jacksonville was going to win. I mean,
it did not feel that way.
They were up 3-0, I think, for a little bit, but at no point did I think the Chiefs were going to win.
There was a single point scored. There was a single point scored the first quarter of this game, by the way.
I just want to say one thing quickly, Breech, and then you can go on. You say that, but if the inline in the Jaguars end zone was moved back 5 inches, they would have won by 40 points because Trevor Lawrence had 4 touchdowns that were out by 1.5 inches. So it was closer than maybe the score indicated.
Maybe Jacksonville needs to get a normal width practice field to get Trevor Lawrence back in line.
All right, go ahead.
I mean, Ridley hit the goalpost and had to leave the game. Calvin Ridley did.
But yeah, I mean, there's a little concern with the Chiefs because their offense still is not just moving on all cylinders like it did the past few years. And yeah, Patrick Mahomes threw for over 300 yards, but it was not a pretty 300 yards. So, I mean, like, I'm a little, I'm not worried. And the Bills too. Okay. I like Josh Allen. All I wanted to see was if Josh Allen gets through this game without throwing an interception, then, and the Bills win, then it's all over. Last week was just overreacting.
I'll ask you this question, Breech, and then Brinson, you can follow up with the Jaguars. So, Breech, I have no concerns about Tua playing outside the confines of the offense. My concerns with Tua are the injuries. And I say this as a conversation about who wins that division. My concern with Josh Allen is one that we had, 4 years ago, where he threw the ball behind his head in that Texans playoff loss. Like, are we going to see that guy? Like, is it just a matter of time before he snaps, or is he going to be able to control himself and play within the confines of Ken Dorsey's offense?
No, that's what he's going to do. I think that they probably sat him down and said, hey, don't make any dumb turnovers, and we're going to win because we're much more talented than most teams we play. He didn't make any dumb turnovers. They won 38-10, and that's going to be – they're just going to point to this film the whole year like, look, you played within the confines of the offense. We won 38-10. You went 13 for 13 on your first 13 passes. You completed 13 in a row, which you probably had never done in your life before that. So, yeah, I think Josh Allen looks good, and we're not going to see – he will not have another 4 turnover game.
Wilson, you don't have a brother, right? You don't
this year.
No. Yeah, but Breech, you have like 14 brothers. I've got a younger brother. And like the thing about Charlie. Shout out to Charlie Brinson. Yeah. The thing about brothers is like they know you're brothers. They know how to push your buttons. They know exactly what's going to make.
Wait a second. The thing about brothers, they're brothers.
But I mean, like you're literally like you could not be more closely related, right? Like, and brothers know to push each other's buttons. And I feel like the Jets and Josh Allen, or the Jets and the Bills, and the Jets defense and Josh Allen are basically like brothers who are like 3 years apart. And the Jets have sort of figured out what annoys Josh Allen, and they're just pushing his buttons. And he's like, eventually. And this happens to me, it happens to Charlie, it happens to my dad when we're all hanging out together. Eventually, you just kind of lose your bleep and you snap and you scream at like somebody. You're like, I just shut up about that. And I think that's where Josh Allen was on Monday night, where he's like, he just sort of lost it and couldn't take it anymore. Was trying to force stuff down the field. And he's
let me ask you quickly this. So you and Charlie are annoyed at one another. You both go to the bar to have a beer. Charlie tells your buddy, hey, tell Brinson this. It'll get him super fired up, and he's going to watch him explode. And my point is that, well, the other teams around the league can watch what the Jets did and perhaps try to harass Josh Allen that same way. Breech seems convinced that Josh is fixed. You're convinced that he's not going to have
I think the Jets are like his kryptonite. So like when we're at my parents' house, holidays, whatever, I will, I've got a 9-year-old and Robbie's with me, and 9-year-olds aren't clean, and I'll clean up behind him. But Charlie will come and be like, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this plate in the dishwasher since you left it out. I'm like, Charlie, like go F yourself. Like I'm gonna get it in a second. I had to get the kid in bed. Goodness. No, it's just he knows what gets me going, and I know what gets him going, and then like my dad knows what everyone can do to each other. And I think like the Jets are basically Allen's kryptonite, and as such. Like he's just 3 straight games he's lost. He's struggled against them, and I think he's just frustrated by it. And then you saw him comes out against the Raiders, a bad defense, and just smokes them. So I'm not overly worried about it. I would say
give me your 30 seconds on the Chiefs, and we'll move on.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs will be fine. It was really hot. It was like 1 o'clock. It's only 1 o'clock kickoff game for them. Swampy down there in Jacksonville. The offense struggled a little bit, but they got Kelsey back. Chris Jones had some big plays. Jacksonville should have won, like you said. Move it back a little bit. They probably pulled it off. But we just pivot back to the Jets since we were talking about them anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to Dallas, the Jerry Dome, the Jerry Mahal, and turns out Cowboys might be pretty good with Mike McCarthy. Now, here's the thing, and I'll say this. So Tony Romo talked to Joe Musso after he called the Jets game, and he made this point, and I thought it was a good one because I was watching, especially late, Zach Wilson throw interception after interception. I know he was sort of forcing it, doing it, and it felt like early on he refused to play inside the structure of the offense and like to get out on the perimeter and try to win with his legs, and just wasn't working. Garrett Wilson seemed to be frustrated at times, even though he had a big touchdown catch. But Tony Romo made this point, and it made me sort of step off the ledge, even though I'm not a Jets fan. He said, listen, you have the pieces in place around Zach Wilson. Now you just have to find a way to get the most out of him. You have the defense, you have the playmakers, you have the running game. You can win that way. I mean, 2004, Big Ben won by just leaning on the run game and the defense. 2008, Joe Flacco, the same thing, his rookie season. And this is year 2 for Zach Wilson. But Breech, Aaron Rodgers says he may come back. I think that would be a miracle of sorts.
Crazy talk.
In the meantime, are you taking Tony Romo's advice and rolling with Zach Wilson and trying to win with him? Or are you still considering what's behind door number 3, which is probably some old broken down quarterback that wouldn't stand a chance should he come to New York?
I'm literally opening up opening up every door in the house.
Okay.
I don't care how
All right.
old the door is. I don't care what it looks like. The Jets built a team that is a Super Bowl contender this year if they have the right quarterback. They are not a Super Bowl contender with Zach Wilson. So it's one of those things where you figure out where if you can upgrade. Look, we saw the news on Sunday morning. The Tom Brady ownership hasn't been approved yet. I call Tom Brady and I say, dude, bro, just tell me what you want. Woody Johnson will give you a blank check and you can make it out to TB12. You can give it to Alex Guerrero.
He can't do that.
You can.
He can't do it.
Brinson, you can do whatever.
Dude, if Tom Brady 2 weeks after, or like a week or like 2 weeks after getting his like being announced he's in the Patriots Ring of Honor and it's being waived and he joins the Jets.
You do remember that Bill Belichick quit that job by fax after 48 hours.
Robert Saul is going to watch that interview with Romo.
Cocktail napkin.
He's going to watch that interview with Romo and be like, "Is Romo trying to tell me he wants me to call him?"
Yeah,
That's how desperate. That's how desperate. Saul is.
Meanwhile, RG3 is like still like every like Monday morning. He's like, "Hey, just saying, like some people."
But yeah, I
Let
would
me
be
ask
at
you
least.
this, though.
I'm sniffing around. You're 1-1. The season's not.
I'm calling the Vikings. I'm calling the Vikings about Kirk Cousins.
Let's start with just, it doesn't matter who it is really at this point. I think Romo makes some sense. Number one, Zach Wilson's the best option athletically. He knows the offense better. That may or may not matter in the way he's played. I don't know if you could say he improved from last week to this week. Certainly not. We haven't seen the improvement you want to see from a top 5 overall pick. But Brinson, I'll ask you, okay, so you bring in Kirk Cousins. Say you bring in Tom Brady. Say you bring in Matt Ryan. Those guys are getting absolutely slaughtered behind that offensive line. That's the concern. So where's the fix? Is that what I'm asking?
Oh, well, so all right, here, Brady Dews and I talked about this on Tuesday. Make sure and check out those shows, of course. And this is where I sort of fall. All right. You lost Aaron Rodgers for the season. In theory, he could come back for the playoffs. That's outrageous to suggest you'd be back in January after a torn Achilles. What's like the better? Because I think if you go sign Matt Ryan, no offense to our colleague, or you get that clown Carson Wentz, or you trade, even if you trade for Kirk Cousins, how many games are you winning? Because like by the time that like actually like comes to fruition, and that quarterback that we're talking about in this, don't put that picture up, Debo. I see what you're doing behind the scenes. By the time that actually comes to fruition, I think that you're going to be like 5 or 6 weeks in, right? Like it's like you're not going to
I think that's the real concern.
Yeah, you're not going to sign Matt Ryan. He's like out there the next day. So you have the Patriots at home on Sunday, the Chiefs at home the week after that. You're at Denver, and then you have the Eagles at home. Then you have the Giants in that matchup, and then the Chargers at home. So, like,
what do you have after the Eagles game, though?
Oh, you got your week 5 bye. Sorry, yeah.
You have your week 7 bye.
Week 7 bye.
You let Zach Wilson. You let Zach Wilson play through week 6, and then you plug and play your next quarterback during the week 7 bye.
One mitigating concern, though.
But this is what I'm saying is like you got your week 7 bye. Is if let's say you go 2-2, best case scenario of the next 4 weeks with those defenses and like having to play in Denver. I mean, like I feel like 1-3 is pretty good for the Jets on those 4 weeks with those matchups. Even if 3 of the games are at home, if you go 1-3 and you're then 2-4, do you at that point do you just kind of want to see what just give Zach Wilson the whole season and you can definitively make a call after the season and like you get a good
that call. They made that call last summer, but I get what you're saying. I don't disagree with what you're saying. And the other thing to keep in mind is that their draft picks are tied up in this Aaron Rodgers business. So they can't trade.
Are they giving away a first-round pick next year, or is it they won't lose? They can't lose their first-round pick now. Yeah. And
you can't trade a conditional pick. So you have to sort that out. So they have some things to concern themselves with. If you're talking about Kirk Cousins, for example, clearly you can sign Tom Brady, I think. I don't think he's still tied to the Broncos or to the Buccaneers. But, I mean, I think Brinson's point is a good one just because if he did it in May, Breech, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles, okay, we're having a conversation. You're doing sort of what Rick Spielman had to do when Teddy Bridgewater got hurt in August. You give up the farm for Sam Bradford. But I don't know, like now, 2 weeks in, and I think he comes in at week 8 with whomever that is. And man, and then you're behind the Bills and the Dolphins anyway.
And you've got to play the Bills and the Dolphins. You haven't even played the Dolphins, and you've got to play the Bills again. And it's like at that point, dude, just ride this thing out, and you could potentially end up like if Zach Wilson sucks that bad, you can end up getting Caleb Williams or Drake May, and then you have somebody behind Aaron Rodgers if he's able to play again, or you go get Marvin Harrison Jr. and you plug him in with Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. To me, I'd rather do that than like try to band-aid this thing and like figure out a way to get to like 9-8 and come in as a wild card and get Sam blasted out of the playoffs.
All right, Breech, we're at the halfway point, 5 down, 6 to go. I'll ask you a one-word answer, and then I'm going to go back to Brinson for point number 6. Would you trade Zach Wilson for Joe Burrow straight up?
The answer is no.
All right, on to number 6. Here we go.
Before you ask me that, I think we should I'll tell you what. Why don't, coming up after the break, Ryan Wilson will ask me something next.
There you go.
Freddie, surprise!
Dad.
What's going on with your son?
Wish I knew. He's got a girlfriend I've never even heard of. When I told him I wanted to spend more time with him, he said no.
It's just not a good time.
Have you considered that he hates you?
Don't sit there! Those are Christian Lacroix pillows.
So we can't sit on the couch.
Not in jeans.
This is where you ask me something since we're back from the break.
All right. Yes, sir. Let's do it. You've been driving the Sean Payton will save Russ Wilson and the Denver Broncos bandwagon for quite some time now. Sean Payton, Russ Wilson, and the Denver Broncos are 0-2. And I don't know if Debo or Harry wrote this in the rundown, the headline here. They almost salvaged it, like they beat the 85 Bears. They beat the freaking Washington Commanders. They lost the Washington Commanders.
You mean the undefeated Washington Commanders?
But Sean Payton, the project is off to a slower start than expected. That's the kind of way of putting it.
I think Harry.
Give me your defense of Sean Payton and Russ Wilson's progress. Quotation marks.
I don't know how much of this game you watched, Wilson, or Breech. I caught it like a decent bit of it. Russell Wilson was cooking. He was slinging the ball, getting it downfield. It felt like pre-Russ injury, like pushing the ball down the field. He hit Marvin Mims for a deep touchdown. He was making some good throws. He was doing some good stuff. I was really impressed with it. He ended the game going 18-32, which is not fantastic. 308 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Marvin Mims, the only guy over 100 yards with 113 that long 60-yard touchdown. Russ was their leading rusher, which is a problem. And Sam Howell hung 35 points on you. Like, I think the defense.
Other than that.
How was the play?
How was the play?
Yeah. I mean, to me, like, I think, remember, we had this long stretch, 3-year stretch where the Saints went 7-9 every year. Drew Brees was like breaking every offensive passing record on planet Earth, but they just didn't have a very good defense. So, like, I think that maybe we're at that spot with the Broncos now.
Wait a second. The Broncos have a great defense. What do you mean?
Is it great?
They weren't great today.
They were not great today.
Howell.
But last year they were one of the best defenses. So I mean, did they just forget how to play football? Like I'm just wondering what happened to the. I get it, but I mean, you're paying Russ Wilson top 5 money, or top 10 now, wherever he is.
I mean, Russell Wilson. If Russell Wilson played the way he played today for the first 3 quarters today, he would be considered a top 10 quarterback. If he played like that all the time, he played.
Fair
Really,
enough,
he played,
but
he played really
he
good
doesn't
football.
play like that all the time. So I'll just ask.
But that's what I'm saying. Like we don't know if this is a case of Russell is kind of rounding into form with Sean Payton. I think it's a tough question to answer. I don't think we can definitively say yes or no, because like if it is coming together and he starts to put together full games like that, then the Broncos are going to be a problem. Now, look, if you give up 35 points to Sam Howell, you're going to lose the game. You're not going to have a lot of fun.
All right, Breech, I'll ask you. First 2 games, the Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett was 1-1. Whoever made this graphic, shout out to that person, Debo and/or Harry. Sean Payton is 0-2. And Brenton, you sort of touched on it. Maybe the Chargers is the job that Sean Payton wanted. I don't know if that would have been much better. Breech, Russ Wilson, the 18-point lead that the Broncos blew. They're hanging that on him. The research department is largest blown lead in any game of his career. 17th game where he's had 6+ sacks. That ties Randall Cunningham for the most all time. Have you seen enough to know whether Sean Payton is gonna...
he averaged 19.3 yards per pass in the first half.
Here's my favorite stat from this game. Sean Payton is the first head coach since 1933 to lose each of his first 2 games with a new team by 2 points or less.
That
doesn't happen. It does not happen. And I mean, this situation is just so weird because week one, the offense was more the problem. The defense did everything they could to put that team in a position to win, and the offense couldn't do it. And then this week, the defense was more the problem, although the offense seemed to struggle and slow down a little bit in the second half. There was that crazy interception that got reviewed
that was
by
a weird call.
Very weird call. Ended up not mattering because I think Joey Sly missed a field goal on that following possession.
Bad.
But it was just, it was like Brinson said, like Wilson showed flashes, but then he also showed flashes of being last year's Russell Wilson. So it's like, who do you get? And obviously there was the Hail Mary, and that was one of the craziest plays. And I still can't believe that they did not throw a pass interference flag on the 2-point conversion. Imagine having all that drama of a Hail Mary and not throwing the flag. But I do feel better about the Broncos right now than I did after week 2 last year. So if that's the answer to your question.
Jeez, a pizza. What a low bar. Basically, you're saying they're still not going to the playoffs. Am I hearing that?
Yeah.
It seems unlikely, but again, let's look at the AFC as a whole, and we'll shift focus in a minute to the NFC. But Miami's 2-0, the Jets are 1-1. But come on, the Bills are 1-1, Pats are 0-2. So you feel like two teams. I feel like Dolphins and Bills. You feel like are coming out of that division and probably get to the playoffs. Patriots need to do something, get real hot. Ravens at 2-0. You feel like they're going to get there. We have to see with the Steelers and the Browns on Monday night. The Bengals. I think two teams from that division too. Jaguars, Colts, Titans all 1-1, and Texans 0-2. To me, this feels like we've seen enough where there's going to be one team out of the South. Might be the Titans. Might be the Jaguars. I think it's either one of those two teams. And then in the West, the Chiefs are 1-1, the Raiders are 1-1, and the Broncos and the Chargers are 0-2. The West might be a one playoff team division, which would throw if the what I'm saying, like right now it would be where you think the Chiefs.
I thought you were saying all this to make an argument that the Broncos were going to make the playoffs, but now it seems like you're not.
He's not.
No, what I'm saying right now, if you were picking the AFC West, you would be picking one team. So you would have one team from the West, one from the South, 2 from the North, and 2 from the East, right? So that's 6. So there's just basically what I'm saying is the Aaron Rodgers injury and Brandon Staley sucking have vacated a playoff spot where one of these 0-2 teams can sneak in.
Yeah, it's early. We'll see. But I don't feel we said it earlier. The Patriots are the best 0-2 team in the AFC. We'll see if that changes in the coming weeks if any of these teams can win a game. All right. Let's not talk about an 0-2 team. Let's move to a team that is not 0-2 unless you're looking in the mirror, Breech. That means they're 2-0. All right, Brinson. Coming into the week, I had Brock Purdy as my second best quarterback in the NFC. I have to revisit those rankings after this week's Sunday's performances. But a little fun fact, and then you can go on a rant about how good the 49ers are, even though they're terrible at personnel decisions.
The NFC is 6-0 against the AFC?
No, even funner.
Really?
Making up words here. So,
More
Breech, this is the first time in the history of the universe, going back to the Big Bang, where the first overall pick at quarterback faced off against Mr. Irrelevant in a football game. Go ahead.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a crazy fact.
I love it. All right, tell me.
I mean, but unless you believe in multiverses, then it could have happened.
Who's that number 1 overall pick? Was it my guy?
What? Of course, you an NFL Jam T-shirt.
Look, here's what I'll say about the 49ers and Rams. I think that the 49ers are maybe the best team in football right now. Brock Purdy was a question mark this offseason because of his injury. And we had the Trey Lance thing, and Sam Darnold still was there. We just didn't know what the quarterback thing was. We know their roster is really, really good. Super strong on the defensive side of the ball. Insane weapons. Great offensive line. Just a question, was Brock Purdy going to be healthy? Was Trey Lance going to get involved? Was Sam Darnold going to be forced into the starting lineup? Through 2 games, Brock Purdy's been really good. And if it's not like, he's not like top, he's not like top 5 quarterback or anything good, but he's 17-25 for 208 yards.
He was dealing against the Steelers. That's all.
He was crushing the Steelers. Yeah, that's Pat P's fault. Christian McCaffrey's a monster. 20 carries, 116 yards. Had a superb touchdown run as well as a 51-yard carry. Deebo Samuel routinely destroys the Rams, as does really Kyle Shanahan. He's won 9 straight regular season games against Sean McVay and the Rams. The only loss they had in that span was in the NFC Championship game in 2021. I think the 49ers are probably the best team in football right now. I think if you were repicking a Super Bowl right now, you'd go like 49ers Dolphins. 49ers are plus 3.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And so on the Rams side of things, I think the Rams are a playoff team. And I think the Rams have looked really good. I think Matthew Stafford has looked awesome the first 2 weeks of the season. Kyron Williams ran the ball well. Puka Nacua, 15 catches on 20 targets for 147 yards. Like, this offense has looked good without Cooper Kupp. And Aaron Donald he wasn't a huge factor on Sunday. I think the 49ers just have the Rams number. They're probably going to win the division, but the Rams look like a really good football team that can get involved in the playoffs and has this quarterback who's gotten hot in the playoffs before. So that's sort of where I stand with the 49ers and the Rams. I think both these teams can go to the playoffs. Give the 49ers all the credit in the world, but the Rams to me do look like a team that's back.
So, Breech, let's talk about the top of the NFC. 49ers, Eagles, Cowboys. My Lions were in the mix until they lost that game to Eugene Cyril Smith III at home in Detroit. Of the 49ers, Philly, and Dallas, all 2-0, all who've won in different ways. 49ers probably look the best. Who do you like the most long-term?
Well, I am the Breech bot, and I picked the Cowboys to win the Super Bowl.
All right.
This year. But if I had to pick right now, based on what I've seen after 2 weeks, I think the 49ers are probably the best team in the NFC, and I'd put the Cowboys in the second spot and the Eagles in the third spot. I mean, the Cowboys defense has just been so dominating that their offense almost doesn't have to show up. The defense just wins the games on its own.
Let me ask you this. Let's do this real quick. So
I was going to say, I'll just push back on that a little bit because
hold on. Let me go through this real quick. Let's do this real quick. 49ers, Eagles, Cowboys. Brinson, I'll come to you first. Rank the defenses. They're all top 3 defenses. Rank them.
Yes. We rank these 3 defenses?
Yeah. How would you?
The 49ers, Cowboys, and Eagles?
Yeah. How would you rank them?
This year. Only
right now through 2 weeks.
I'm going to go 49ers 1A, Cowboys 1B, Eagles 3. And
all right,
I would
Breech, you do. Let Breech do the same. Go ahead, Breech. How do you rank these defenses?
Through 2 weeks of what I've seen with my own 2 eyes, I am going Cowboys 1, 49ers 2, Eagles 3.
All right, let me do one more thing real quick. Brinson, excuse me. Rank the quarterbacks.
Just this season, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
I think you. Okay, so this will be my point about the Cowboys. I thought week 1, we talked about this. We didn't learn anything about the Cowboys offense. We learned everything about the Cowboys defense, and the Cowboys offense just didn't get involved with that Giants game. I thought we learned a lot about the Cowboys offense against a very good Jets defense. They look balanced. They're willing to feed CeeDee Lamb as the alpha receiver. They're willing to give Tony Pollard a bunch of carries, and Dak played well. So through 2 weeks of the season, I will take Dak 1, Brock Purdy 2, and Jalen Hurts 3.
Breech, the same.
If this was just overall last 2
it's
seasons,
a simple question.
Jalen Hurts would be 1, but through 2 weeks,
through the 2 weeks, not.
Yes, let me finish my statement, please. Yes, through these 2 weeks of the 2023 season, I think Brock Purdy is 1, then Dak, and then Jalen.
Okay.
Breech, Colin, Hurts.
So here's what the wins over Wilson back of the envelope calculation comes up with. 49ers and Cowboys are 1 and 1A, and everyone consensus is the Eagles are in last place. Sorry, Sam. Sorry, Debo. So, okay. So back to you. Oh, go ahead.
Fun fact real quick. The Cowboys are just the 5th team in 57 years to score at least 7 points and give up 10 or fewer points through the first 2 weeks of the season.
All right, here's the tiebreaker, okay? And Brinson will come to you first.
Love tiebreakers.
Rank the coaching staffs. Rank the coaching staffs.
I mean, 49ers 1.
Uh-huh.
I'm actually going to go Cowboys 2 and Eagles 3.
I
think Mike McCarthy. I think there's a chance that Mike
People are sleeping on Mike McCarthy. Say it, Brinson. They're sleeping on him. Go to sleep.
I'm just I think from a fantasy standpoint too. Like, remember when Mike McCarthy was running the offense in Green Bay? They would have he would condense targets and condense touches onto one running back and one wide receiver, and you saw that with CeeDee Lamb today. So I think this will be good for fantasy. For Mike McCarthy will be. And when we say this about the Eagles, it's not like we think the Eagles stink. It's just that
that's what I'm hearing.
No, it's just that through 2 weeks, it feels like the Eagles could really easily be 0-2, and they sort of gotten some lucky breaks vis-a-vis turnovers that they shouldn't have gotten. Like, it wasn't like incredible defensive plays that got turnovers. It was like the Patriots and the Vikings kind of peed down their legs and gave the Eagles the ball a bunch. And so, yeah, like that's probably going to change. The Raiders are leading the AFC West right now. I don't think that's going to be. Yes.
No, go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, I don't think that the Eagles are going to be the third best team in the NFC at the end of the year. I think San Francisco 1, Philly 2, Dallas 3, but man, Dallas looks really complete across the board. And I don't think that they'll win a Super Bowl, but I do think that this is a team that is going to be competing for the number 1 seed. I think they'll win the division. So actually, I guess I think they're the 2.
All right, Breech, quickly rank the coaches. I have one more question and we'll move on.
Yeah, 49ers, Cowboys, Eagles. That's how I'm going.
Wow,
I mean, the Eagles lost both their coordinators. I can't put that coaching staff. Am I ranking just the head coaches or the whole coaching staff?
That's fine. You don't know all the coaches. No one does.
Yeah, it's 49ers.
Even the coaches don't.
49ers, Cowboys,
so
Eagles.
Knowing those final tallies, the 49ers are number 1, Cowboys are number 2, and the Eagles are a distant third. So quickly, 30 seconds or less, Brinson. The Lions lost. I still love them, but the Bucs, Falcons, and Commanders are all 2-0. Any conversation about those teams?
Yeah. I mean,
in terms of making noise and being competitive at the top of the conference.
Well, remember, like, Pete Prisco picked the Commanders to make the playoffs. A lot of people sort of thought the Commanders would. So you said Atlanta too, right?
Yep. Bucs, Falcons, Baker.
One of my bold predictions, as you fools may recall, since you were on the podcast, I said the Falcons would have the most wins in the NFL.
Yeah, that's bold.
And they do right now. I think the Falcons are. I think the Falcons' defense is much improved. They were down and were trailing, and Desmond Ridder sort of like. I'm telling you, man, this is just Tennessee light. This is like it is a poor man's Tennessee Titans. That's what they want to be. That's what Arthur Smith kind of patched together. They don't care how much they throw. They don't care how much how they win. They're just trying to find these wins. Bijan had 19 carries for 124 yards, 6.5 per pop. Algier had 16, and Desmond Ridder ran the ball 10 times and had a touchdown. 19-32 for a touchdown and a pick. Drake London got involved. Kyle Pitts is kind of non-existent. It's not going to be pretty. They're going to scrap and claw, and they're just going to sort of, I think, find a way to win a bunch of games because they have a soft schedule. Tampa Bay Mike Evans looks locked in like he wants to get paid. Baker is playing pretty good football, and the Bucs defense is not bad. The Bucs have also played a Vikings team that loves to choke and is due for some regression, and the Bears, who are friggin' terrible. And then
all right,
Commanders, dude, the Commanders, Sam Howell's good. The Commanders can make a playoff run.
You went over by 7 minutes. Wilson's request of 30 seconds or less. I kept time on my watch.
I know, but I'm making sure Wilson doesn't finish under the allotted time slot.
Sam Howell was my QB2 Breech. So that was 0.7. 3 more to go. Let's go on to 0.8. Breech, I'll come to you. And you have between 30 seconds and 7 minutes. Is up to you.
Yes.
Brinson mentioned the Bears. The Bears, and pardon my French, they suck. And I was of the opinion that Matt Canada was the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL. Luke Getsy would like a word. I went back and watched last week's game against the Packers, and there is no hope for Justin Fields. It's not all on Justin Fields. That team is bereft of talent. Chase Claypool looks like he doesn't want to play football, even though he had a touchdown on Sunday. They finally got DJ Moore the ball on Sunday, which was a nice change after only 2 targets last week. So, Breech, I'll come to you. It feels like the way Justin Fields has been being treated. If they again have the first overall pick in back-to-back years, it feels like Justin Fields will be Trey Lanced. Do you have that same opinion? Is there any salvation for him or this coaching staff? Tell me what you think.
Well, I think one thing we mentioned last week after they lost was the fact that Justin Fields probably just needs a fresh start. He might be a bust. He might not be. He is not going to be successful in Chicago with this coaching staff. I mean, that's just what it feels like. You look at his first 3 years, and I don't know why everyone, I think, had the Bears winning 4 games and finishing in last place. And why
remember when Justin Fields got steamed to 20-1 to be MVP?
Right. Well, I mean, everybody was jumping on the Bears bandwagon. We have 2 years of proof of what Justin Fields has done. He's never got to play with a very talented roster, so that's definitely part of it. But look, it's a guy who threw 10 interceptions in 10 games his rookie year, which fine, it's your rookie year. Throw 11 interceptions in 15 games last year, but he runs the ball well, but they're even trying to take that away from him, make him more of a passer. And we're 2 weeks in the season. He's already thrown 2 pick sixes. He's thrown a pick six each week. That's literally the last thing you ever want to do as a quarterback. So I don't think if you're the Bears, you either need a new head coach or a new quarterback next season. And whatever the front office, whatever way you go, I don't care. I don't think that it's going to work with him and his coaching staff. So either Justin Fields goes somewhere else or Brand new staff in her.
So through the first 5 games of the season last year, Justin Fields was averaging 38.8 rushing yards per game. He was not running a bunch. He had 12 carries he had 11 carries in the first game, 8, 8, 7, and 8. A lot of those were not like design carries. Most of them were not. And then the Bears were like, oh my goodness, our team sucks. We're not very good at football. We need to let Justin Fields run and create some design carries. 12 carries, 14, 8, 15, 13, 18. Then he gets hurt and doesn't play. 6, 15, 7, and 10. They ran him like crazy. They changed the offense and were like, let's let Justin run. And they won one game the rest of the year. Like, this team is bad, and I don't know why people thought they would be good. And Justin Fields is probably going to be, if they finish with a top 5 pick, he's probably going to be, they probably will. He's probably going to be on. Like, we see that. I think this is Christian Prosser's mock draft. He is the Bears taking Drake May, going back to the Carolina quarterback. Well, Chicago, good luck. With the 4th overall pick, like, I think it is very, very likely if this thing, or this is Josh Edwards, I'm sorry, not Christian Paso. Right. I think it's very, very likely that if the Bears finish with a top 5 or top 3 pick, that in the same way that you fire a coach to get the heat off your back, the coaching staff and front office will dump Fields and draft somebody else and blame it on Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy and say they're the ones who got Fields. He's just not the guy.
Not Ryan Pace. Ryan, who was the previous?
Ryan Pace is the old GM. It's Ryan Poles and Matt
Poles, right. I always get the RPs. So a couple things. Josh Edwards mock, as you mentioned, and actually we talked to Josh on the With the First Pick podcast. You can check that out if you want to hear the whole entire mock. And Rick Spielman go off on him about that. The other thing, Breech, I'll ask you this quickly, because the 2017 draft was Trubisky instead of everyone else that was available, including Patrick Mahomes. If Patrick Mahomes is on that team, Patrick Mahomes is probably out of the league by now. So drafting anyone, Caleb Williams, Drake May, or otherwise, does that fix it?
I know it's the coaching staff. Like, if you put a new quarterback on this coach with the same exact coaching staff, they're still not going. The Chicago's a black hole for quarterbacks for whatever reason. I mean,
and receivers.
I mean, we all saw the stat on Thursday night that Justin Jefferson has more career yards than any Bears receiver, and Justin Jefferson has barely been in the league for what? He's been in the league for 3, 4, 5, 3, and the Bears have existed for 100. So it's just bonkers to think about how bad just the Bears are at throwing the ball. It doesn't seem possible. It's the law of averages would eventually go in their favor. It has not. So I don't know. Maybe just tear it down and start over. You just say, hey, you know what? We're going to build a new stadium and let's just have a brand new team. Let's retire the Bears.
By the way, you know that DJ Moore has more receiving yards than the all-time Bears leader too. Like DJ Moore has 5,266 receiving yards. The all-time leader for the Bears is Johnny Morris, who played from 1958 to 1967 with 5,059. Like, DJ Moore has more receiving yards in his career than any other Bears receiver.
Yeah, it's a sad story, and I'm glad I'm not Joe Musso, Matt Snyder, Tom Pernelli.
Oh wow! Speaking of, just one more dunk on the Bears. Number 2, can you name the number 2 person on this Bears all-time receiving yards list?
I think number 2 is fitting, but I don't know who it is.
When did he play?
Yeah,
1954 to 1961.
Dick LeBeau.
Harlan Hill.
Oh, I was going to guess him.
Number 3 is Alshon Jeffrey. Number 4 is Walter Payton. 5 is Mike Ditka. 6 is Curtis Conway. 7 is Matt Forte. 8 is Marty Booker. I mean, it's unbelievable.
All right, 8 down. 2 more to go. Concerning omens in Indy, Brinson, this is one of the reasons they were concerned about AR5. Anthony Richardson, 6'4", 244, ran in the 4.4s, and he treats his body like you treat your body on a Saturday night. Hit the button.
That's pretty good. Yeah,
let me just give you a little more filler here. So he got a concussion, scored 2 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. He will run people over. But you mentioned RG3 earlier. Different body types, but that's why RG3 is out of the league, because he couldn't quit taking hits. Whereas Russ, as much as we give him a hard time recently, he knows how to avoid getting hit. How do you fix that? Because Shane Steichen feels like he has AR5 dialed in much the same way he had Jalen dialed in.
So I think Richardson has looked awesome, and he has been a fantastic fantasy quarterback so far when he has been on the field. He had that left knee injury in week 1, rushing on a running play.
Josh Allen, defensive end, jacked him up.
Right. They said he could have kept playing if he needed to, if the game was in the balance. Week 2, he scores a rushing touchdown, suffers a concussion, and then plays 2 more series, which not great for the team that ruined Andrew Luck's career, but by virtue of like all these injuries. My concern is that, and the Russ Wilson thing, I agree with completely. The one I read about this, and it was like, I think with like Jalen Hurts, right? That's Shane Steichen's old quarterback. Jalen Hurts is what a scout or somebody told you, Wilson, was the best running back in the Big 12. He's smaller
in a good way.
He's like thick as hell. He squats massive amounts of weight, and Anthony Richardson is like a leaner Cam Newton. And
no, he's bigger. They're similar. Like we were at his pro day, and he is thick.
Well, he's thick, but I'm saying like Jalen Hurts is really good at running, knows how to avoid the contact, and he still got hurt. And it feels like
Jalen
Richardson
is closer to the ground. I'll give you that.
I'm just Richardson has 2 reasonably serious injuries in his first 2 games of his pro career. That's a concern moving forward because you just can't have that happen.
I will say this though, Breech, he has outplayed the other 2 rookies. We haven't seen Bryce Young yet. He'll play on Monday night. CJ was his opponent. CJ Stroud was his opponent in this game, and CJ looked out of sorts at times. I'm not really concerned about that because that team, Houston, isn't very good, but I think D'Amico Ryans is a good coach. But Anthony Richardson, 13 starts, beating that dead horse into the ground in college, and he looks like he has the highest ceiling. But you have to be able to understand that you have to get out of bounds. So, is there an easy fix? Is there a solution? The Bengals don't have any history of sort of athletic quarterbacks in recent memory, so you haven't necessarily had to concern yourself with that. But this guy has the makings of being someone special, but it doesn't matter if he can't play.
No, I mean, but you see it with athletic. I mean, like we saw RG3 running around, get injured. It's just one of those things and I feel like it's with rookies, period, especially at quarterback, where you're just kind of trying to be Superman and you're not worried about sliding because you think you're invincible and you can take hits. And you get hit a couple times, you're like, oh, yeah, these guys are 10 times stronger and bigger than what I dealt with in college, and I should probably start sliding. So I do think that – and Andrew Luck, like, we were talking about his injury. He had the same issue. He just wouldn't go down. He would just run into people and take those hits, and you cannot do that. Your body will not do that. So I think the coaching staff will kind of just put it in his head that, hey, Anthony, you have to slip or you are going to be in this NFL for 5 years.
But why are they going to do it? Like Jalen Hurts didn't play the last 2 weeks. He came back in week 18, but missed week 16 and 17, right?
No, it's just about like going out of bounds instead of getting 1 extra yard and taking a hit, or sliding instead of getting 1 extra. If you're going for a first down, that's one thing. But in the grand scheme of things, you would rather go down or go out of bounds than take a hard hit from a middle linebacker.
I don't know if Steve, I don't know if you're near a mic or not, but it feels like Jalen Hurts was pretty good, at least last year, about not getting RG3'd. Like he got out of bounds much more efficiently than certainly Anthony Richardson has done. You agree with that? If you're there,
yeah, it was the one mistake he made versus the Bears last year where he didn't protect himself, and it ended up costing him. This year, he's extra protective. He's a little indecisive but not indecisive when it's time to go down on a designed run. So I applaud him for what he's, after watching Mike Vick a decade ago, it's entirely different.
One more sort of Philly related Indy question. Do the Eagles miss Shane Steichen?
So far, yeah, absolutely.
You sound sad, Breech.
I heard it.
I heard it in his voice.
Come back to Philly, please.
Yeah, shut up. All right. So obviously something to worry about in terms of the injuries. Very excited if you're a Colts fan and AR5 can stay on the field, but so far that's been tough sledding through 2 games into his career. All right. 9 down.
Per my contract, I'm not allowed to hear Debo talk, so I had to leave.
I get it.
Fair.
We're on to point 10. We're on to Cincinnati. That means we're on to the end of the podcast. And what better place to start than at the bottom coming into this week? The New York Football Giants got housed 40-0 last week on national television. It was so bad that we quit watching to do the podcast. This week, they got Josh Dobbs 20. They were down 60-0 to start the season, and somehow found a way to beat the aerospace engineer, the Arizona Cardinals, Josh Dobbs. Brinson, I'll say this: it feels like the Bears have quit on the season, and maybe they haven't, but it just feels that way on the
Giants or
outside. The Bears.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna come back around. But it was hard to figure out why the Giants weren't doing what Brian Dable told them to do last year when they were so successful with fewer playmakers. But it seems like they put it all together. The first game, offense no-showed. The first half of this game against the Cardinals, the defense was nowhere to be found. And then it all came together. They came back for the win. I haven't seen news yet on Saquon, but he looked like a lower body injury. We'll see how that works out. Fingers crossed.
It's a right ankle sprain, I believe, and the plan is
that's better than the ACL. Good, that's good.
Yeah. It's not an ACL. I think it's a right ankle sprain. The plan is to have an MRI in the morning. I believe.
Great. So let me ask you this: do you feel better? A win's a win. Do you feel better about the Giants, not just because they're 1-1, but about the way they rallied, the way they came back, and their ability now to compete in that division?
No.
Really? Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I think that second half was like needed from Kevin Steimel, our NFL editor, is a big Giants fan. We know lots of Giants fans, and it was like, man, oh boy, this is gonna be awkward to even like talk about the Giants and like how they just got blown out by the Cardinals after being losing 40-0 to the Cowboys in week 1. And Giants fans are gonna have to complain. You're like, no, it's fine. Like everything's fine. Like it's because I always make that comp with the Bills from 2017 to 2018. But then you're like, well, yes, but the Bills drafted Josh Allen and the Giants signed Daniel Dimes instead. They're 23-1 to win this division. I think that. I think it was like I think it's a bit of a slingshot motivationally, or momentum wise to possibly like play better over the next few weeks. But I still think this Giants team is probably like a sub 500 team. Breech.
Oh, yeah. What do you think, Breech?
I was just going to say, it blows my mind that the Arizona Cardinals, who everyone seemed to agree was the worst team in football, could be 2-0. I mean, they literally led Washington in the fourth quarter last week, and they absolutely blew this game. So it's hard to the Giants won this game, which is great for them because they would have been the laughingstock of the NFL if they lost to Arizona. So good that they won, but I don't know what I learned about them besides that, hey, you beat a bad team. So
they're not 0-2. You learn that. I mean,
the Giants defense got just, James Conner's out there running for over 100 yards. Josh Dobbs is running around. It's just amazing how much they struggled with an offense that has 0 weapons. So it's like,
but again,
is the defense the problem? Is the offense the problem? It just seems like the problems are compounding in New York, and they play San Francisco, I think, in week 3. It's just, I have no idea how they could possibly match up with them in that game on short notice. It's because I think it's a Thursday night game. So it's just
the Giants, right? Yeah. That line should be like 13.
Be 80.
If you're listening on the audio version.
No, 80.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I think it's more than 8.
Adam Schefter confirms Will Brinson's previous report that Saquon indeed had an ankle injury. He can do an MRI on Monday. It's an ordinary sprain, one source told Schefter. So that's great news. I thought it was his knee again, his reconstructed ACL. So fantastic news there that can get him back at some point. I'm a little more bullish on the Giants. You guys are really down on them. Brian Dable solved a lot of problems.
Brian Dable's a great coach. Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what happened over the first 6 quarters where that team said, we're going to do exactly what Joe Judge would do for the first game and a half of football. And they finally snapped out of it. And I think there's some encouraging signs. Now, look, again, to Breech's point, you beat the Cardinals. Big deal. That team is trying to get Caleb Williams. They can't even do that properly. But they're not 0-2. And as Mike Tomlin likes to say, style points don't matter. So they're 1-1. They're in the mix. They're going to get their doors blown off probably next week, and we'll reconvene. What
does wins over Wilson have? I know what the line is. What do you have the line for Giants 49ers?
Where is it?
It's in San Francisco on Thursday night.
Oh, I would say minus 8.5.
10.
Yeah, I wanted to say 9.5. That sounded
too
rich.
I think 10's too short, man. The Niners might just obliterate.
Yeah. No, I get it. All right. So both of you guys think the Giants are a no-go on the playoffs.
I think the Giants were, Minnesota went 11-0 in 1-score games last year. The Giants had a great 1-score record as well. They were kind of a luck box. I think Dable coached up a roster that had been deteriorating for years under Dave Gettleman. Brian Dable coached it up, and they were better than the personnel they had, and as such, they overachieved. And so it's one of those. It's the unfortunate nature of like you go 9-8 and make the playoffs and win a playoff game, and everyone's saying, "Oh, well, just go do that, but better," because you grow exponentially as a football team each year. But that's not how it works. There's injuries, there's regression, all kinds of different stuff in a short sample size game. And so I think it's more likely that they go like 6-11, 7-10. And to me, the big thing is, does Daniel Jones look like? Do you come away from this season not regretting the Daniel Jones contract?
Well, Brinson, what you're saying is that they're a victim of their own success. That they were so good last year, too good too soon, and the expectations shot through the roof. And there's no way they can live up to those.
Right. It's like, but wouldn't you rather go 7-10 and you're like, okay, we feel okay about the Daniel Jones contract versus you go 9-8, make the playoffs. You're like, oh, we don't really know if we should have signed him that deal.
I don't know. I thought he looked pretty good last year with Brian Dable, but again, he's got to sort some things out. All right, before we get out of here, I'll make this up on the spot here. John, who is your Breech VP for the week? Anything, anybody, any mascot, your call.
My Breech VP, I'm guessing that means they played well.
Sure.
No, that means that they killed the most cats.
It is the Atlanta Falcons.
All right. Fair enough.
Trailing 24-12 in the fourth quarter. They came back, outscored the Packers 13-0. Very, when you think of the Falcons, you think fourth quarter collapse, you think 28-3. Yeah. You never think of great comeback, but they did it. Brinson, your Falcons are 2-0.
All right, Brinson VP.
I told you that the Falcons were going to win a bunch of games and be really good this year, and they are. They're your baby Titans, Breech. You lived in Atlanta, you lived in Nashville. They're the Bitans, exactly. By the way, somebody says you guys are dumb AF besides the bald guy.
Shout out to bald guys everywhere. All right, Brinson VP, who is
that sounds like that's your wife in the chat, is what that is.
Thanks, honey.
I'll tell you, my Brinson VP is. Let me make sure I'm not missing somebody before I put this one in.
Do you want to give me mine while you do yours?
No, because I got mine. I don't want you to steal mine because I think you will.
There's no way I'm stealing yours. You're not enough.
Because mine is Eugene Cyril Smith the third. Put some respect on this guy's full name. 32 of 41, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a walk-off touchdown pass to Tyler Lockett in overtime to beat the Lions on the road after the Seahawks got embarrassed by the Rams in week 1. And people were like, whoa, do we need to hit the panic button on the Seahawks? Missing both his left tackle and his right tackle. Going to the game as a 5.5-point dog. They win anyway. And now you feel like if you're the Seahawks, you lose. Like you probably thought you were going to lose this game. Probably thought you're going to beat the Rams. So now you feel like everything's even Steven and you're good to go here. You just got to keep stacking wins. And look, man, the Geno Smith resurgence is one of my favorite storylines of the last 24 months.
It's a great story. We wrote him off. He didn't write back. All right, the Wilson MVP brought to you by Wins Over Wilson. Baker Mayfield. That's all I got. 2-0. That's all you need to know. That's it. This edition of Sunday Night Super Friends is a wrap.
Do you think Josh Allen should get consideration for the Wilson MVP?
Not
actually. You know what? I can't drag this out another 2 minutes. So go to wrap it.
But don't worry, because we'll see you back here in approximately 168 hours. Breech, start the clock. In the meantime, you can check out the Pick Six podcast all week on YouTube and NFL on CBS, wherever you get your audio podcasts. All right. Thanks to all you guys who hung out with us tonight. We appreciate you. For Willie Bear, making up names here, and the Breech NATO. I'm Wilson. See you guys next week.
See you guys.